the Start Your Own Business podcast. Hear inspiring startup stories and get reliable expert advice on how to start your business and get off to the best possible start. Brought to you by Startup Donut, helping small businesses succeed.
Hi there, thanks for joining us. You're listening to the Start Your Own Business podcast. My name's Fiona and I'm your host. Coping with the demands of a full-time job is challenging enough, but research carried out by Sage suggests that a staggering 47% of UK adults have a side hustle. And among the under 34s, 90% of those plan to turn their side hustle into a full-time business. Those statistics are quite incredible when you think about it. Having a side hustle can be a great way to boost your income, which can be vital, especially considering the cost of living rises we've all seen in recent years. You might already have your own side hustle, or you may be considering starting one soon. So, what's the key to success and how do you balance a side hustle with your day job? What better way to learn than from someone who's been there and done it? In this episode, I'll be speaking to Sam Feller of Popcorn Shed, a highly successful gourmet popcorn brand that he founded with his cousin Laura back in 2015. For 18 months, while developing their brand and business idea, Sam and Laura held down full-time jobs in London, starting and running Popcorn Shed as a home-based side hustle. So, what was their recipe for success? Before we meet Sam, let's find out how Sage, the sponsor of this episode, can help you and your small business.
To be honest, work had been a slog. I'm a designer, but some nights I was chasing invoices like my full-time job. Now Sage Copilot chases my invoices for me. I just need to click a button and it's done. And I get paid 1 week faster.
Sage Copilot is built with over 40 years of experience helping real businesses like Sophia at Solver Design. That's more than artificial intelligence, that's authentic intelligence. Search Sage Copilot to learn more. Working with 21 customers, each round payments came in 7 days faster with Sage Copilot. T's and C's apply.
It's now time to meet our guest, Sam Feller, founder of Popcorn Shed. Hi there, Sam. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, it's great to be here.
I wanted to start, if that's okay, with the kind of days before you were running Popcorn Shed. As far as I understand it, you started the company with your cousin Laura. But before you were running Popcorn Shed, what were you doing?
Yeah, so I actually came into food and drink from a totally different background. I was in property management, commercial property management. So I went to university, I got a degree in real estate, and I basically went into corporate life. So I went into the City of London and I got trained as a chartered surveyor, actually outside of London. Then I got a job in the City of London. And I was doing that for about 6 years. So I trained as a chartered surveyor. I got some initials after my name, MRICS, which is Master of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. I did what's called an APC, Assessment of Professional Competence. And I became a qualified chartered surveyor. And I was working, basically managing commercial properties on behalf of clients in London. So that was my job. I was managing some small buildings and some larger buildings, mostly office and retail buildings. So completely different to coming to work in a product-based business, as you can imagine.
Sounds a million miles away.
It was, absolutely it was, yeah.
And what about Laura? What was Laura's background before the business?
Laura also went into professional services. She was a management consultant working in London and for a big sort of IT technology consultancy. And she doing that for probably 9 or 10 years, so a little bit longer than me. And she was very much project based. So she would be put on projects for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever, moved around the country, around Europe quite a lot in terms of some of the client work that she was doing. And yeah, we sort of came together and decided that we wanted to start a business together. But yeah, we had both had professional services careers before starting the business.
Right. So did you ever harbour any plans of, running your own business or working for yourself? Or did this come sort of out of the blue?
I did, yeah. I mean, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So my parents were business owners. They built a business in the 90s in recruitment, actually, in recruitment consultancy. So I think I saw my parents very much as sort of role models to aspire to, because I sort of saw what they were doing. I wasn't so enamored with recruitment, but I quite liked the idea of being my own boss one day.
And had you kind of run any side hustles or, any sort of business yourself before Popcorn Shed?
Yeah, I used to run club nights. So in my 20s, I ran 2 club nights. I think I must have started it when I was about 23, 24 with my housemate. And I ran them for about 6 years again. It was a decent run that we had. Midweek student club nights, cheap drinks, and it was when there was a bit more sort of nightlife in the West End than there is now, unfortunately. But yeah, it was great fun, really good fun. Met people. I was single, so great way of meeting people as well. It was great.
So in terms of starting a business, you weren't strictly speaking a kind of new rider. You'd had some entrepreneurial experience yourself before, both through your family and through your own business.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it was very different kind of business, running an events business. But I guess it did give me some experience in terms of, marketing, obviously revenue generation, continuity, managing people, all those kind of things. They're transferable skills that I think I started very much at a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on then to Popcorn Shed, as far as I understand things, and correct me if I'm wrong, the idea came from a holiday that you had to the United States. Is that right?
Yeah, so we actually used to go as a family. We used to go to Florida quite a lot as a kid. We probably went 5 or 6 times. And then more recently, I guess not recently, but before I started Popcorn Shed, with a year or 2 prior, I had gone to the States and on a holiday, and just seeing the amount of popcorn that was on the shelves there, in terms of the variety of flavors they've got, the number of brands, the different pack formats, just really kind of the category is just so much bigger than anything we've got in Europe. And I think I was inspired by the choice, by the quality of the products that were on shelf, and I just thought, we haven't really got anything in the UK that kind of compares to this. And we thought, we could definitely do something here. There's a trend. There's clearly a market in the States, and we could actually do something in the UK, bring it to the UK and European markets, and make a success of it.
So how did you go about developing your first flavours then? What were your first steps in starting Popcorn Shed?
I come from a very keen hobbyist interest in baking. So I love baking. I've always loved baking. As a kid, I used to bake with my mum on the weekends, and made cakes and things like that. And I think so I've always loved getting experimental in the kitchen. But when it came to popcorn, I'd never really made popcorn before. And certainly the type of popcorn that we make and that we wanted to make is a caramel-based flavored popcorn. Okay, so it requires obviously popping of the corn, and then the making of a high-quality caramel, and then a coating of that popcorn in the caramel. And because we had no experience of actually making caramel popcorn, I think in the very early days we looked up some recipes online. I bought a book which was like 100 popcorn recipes, which was an American book, and bought one of those really kind of cheap and fun air poppers that you can get online, and just worked out how to actually pop the popcorn in the air popper, and then using the recipe books worked out how to make a caramel base, and then using a big wooden spoon and a big great saucepan, actually coating the popcorn in the domestic kitchen at home, and making that caramel popcorn taste as good as it possibly could. So there was a good sort of, I want to say 12 to 18 month period. It was a long time. We were doing it on weekends. Laura and I getting busy in the kitchen, working out actually how to make the product. That was definitely a long learning curve for us, because we just had no idea really how to do it beforehand.
Yeah. And I can say, being a popcorn fan myself, we've had one of those air poppers, and when we were children, they didn't exist. So you'd do it in a frying pan. And I've got vivid memories of lots of burned popcorn. So I can well imagine that was quite a long process.
With the air popper, we actually didn't read the instructions when we first got this thing. And we put the popcorn, the kernels in the popper, and then we put a spoonful of oil in there. Now, if you know anything about air popping, you don't put the oil, it's literally just hot air and kernels. We didn't know that. And we ended up blowing up the popcorn machine on the first try. So that was a bit of a learning, let's say. We had to buy another one. Literally, we were clueless. We had no idea.
You've already mentioned that you knew there was a vibrant market for popcorn in the United States. What kind of market research did you do in terms of demand in this country?
That's a good question. There are some market research reports. Certainly at the time, I went to the British Library. They had a IP section and a business centre, and they had some market research reports that were freely accessible, the likes of Mintel and others, that you could actually go and read in the library. You could access the latest market data, and we did do that. There was a little bit of market research in terms of the overall size of the market. Was it growing? Was it shrinking? Where was this market in terms of the type of outlets? Was it grocery? Was it other types of sales channels? And we mapped out a bit of a plan from that. So we knew how big the sector was before we went into it. And then we came up with a business plan, partly based on data, but also partly based on, the mission. It wasn't all driven by the data. It was very much like, we think there's a market. This product tastes great. Why can't UK consumers get their hands on this kind of product? And there were a couple of brands actually at the time that were doing something similar, not exactly what we do, but something similar. And they had proven some traction in the UK. They'd got some listings and things like that, and the product was selling. So it wasn't like a brand new product that we were suddenly coming up with that was a hugely innovative. It was an innovative spin on an existing category, but it wasn't like something that most consumers had never heard of. If you go back to when we launched the business as well, popcorn had kind of gone from this cinema snack that people really just bought in the cinema, sweet salted popcorn. That was really through the 90s. And as the noughties came on board, popcorn went through a huge growth trajectory within the grocers. So it became more of an everyday snack. It was seen as a healthy snacking option. And it had been through this massive renaissance. So I think we went into the category knowing that it had huge growth. We thought there was further growth to be had, but we saw lots of brands competing in the sort of healthy snacking space. We very much focused on the luxury or gourmet end of the market, focusing on that premium snacking experience, higher price point, best in class kind of snack. That's really where we majored and where we wanted to focus.
So what about the business name and branding? How did the name Popcorn Shed come about?
So my business partner came up with the name. What happened is we were making all this popcorn at home. So Laura's my cousin, and we were making the popcorn in her mother's kitchen, so my auntie's kitchen. And basically, as I say, it took 12 to 18 months to come up with the exact process, the exact recipes that we would then go and launch our first 3 flavors with. And by the time we'd spent this sort of 18-month period in the kitchen every Saturday, making a complete mess of the kitchen, as you can imagine, caramel everywhere, bits of popcorn flying, found under the kitchen table 2 weeks later, she kind of lost her rag a little bit, and she's like, right, I've had enough of this little venture. Everything in the garden shed, I want everything banished to the garden shed, all the equipment, all the ingredients, etc. And ended up going into the garden shed. It was her kitchen after all. We had to abide by her rules. So we put everything into the garden shed, and then friends and family would sort of, say, "Oh, where's all the popcorn stuff? Oh, it's in the shed. Oh, you mean the popcorn shed?" And the brand name actually was an organic evolution of this, because at the time we were looking for a brand name. We'd finally got the recipes right, and people were calling it the popcorn shed. Oh, that's got a bit of a ring to it. So that's how the name came about. Laura sort of, said, "Oh, my founder had been calling it the popcorn shed. Okay, yeah, that's a great name. Let's go with that. Sounds great."
So were you still making popcorn in the shed or, in your auntie's kitchen at the point when you started to make your first sales? Were you still kind of home producing the product at that point?
No. So what happened is that we did our first production in the domestic kitchen. We then went on this period when we got the Popcorn Shed brand name. We then went through a period of getting the product to market. This was all during full-time employment. So we got the brand name. We then engaged a branding agency to come up with a logo, to come up with the packaging. One of the most innovative things that we did was put popcorn in a box, which sounds doesn't sound that innovative, but actually at the time there was no boxed popcorn. It was all bagged popcorn. So that was a big innovation for the business. The box actually itself looks like a shed. So we ended up branding each of these little boxes as a specific theme of the shed. So we have the chocolate shed, we have the beet shed for salted caramel, etc. So we did all of this work whilst we were still in full-time employment, but the focus for us was really bringing the product to market, having a physical product ready for market before we left our jobs. So this was what we did. So we got the brand name, we engaged a brand agency, we got the logo done, we got the packaging done, we built a website as well, a very basic kind of brand website. And we even made our first sales. So we started our social media pages and we got some interest from, I don't know how they found us, but for whatever reason, the buyer at Harrods reached out to us, I think having found us on Instagram.
Wow.
And we got this email through, hi, interested in your stuff, send me some samples. And we were like, oh my God, it's Harrods. How did they even find us?
Yeah.
Sent them samples and basically got a listing. I think that initial buyer reach out gave us such a huge boost of confidence to say, we're probably onto something here. Maybe this is something we should really take seriously and, consider leaving our jobs for.
Yeah. So while you were still sort of working from home, presumably you have to, with any food-based product, you have to comply with all the kind of rules on food hygiene and labelling of bits and pieces. How did you manage that? Did you have outside support for that?
So at the same time as this branding piece was going on, we decided that making popcorn ourselves wasn't a business model that we wanted to get involved in. It's, you start a brand, you start something from scratch within the sort of CPG, consumer packaged goods space. You've obviously got all the branding and all the stock to worry about. But then if you start making it yourself, you've then got to buy machinery, you've got to find a premises, you've got to look at, get yourself health and safety accredited. And it was just a capital investment that we felt at the time wasn't right for us. We didn't really want to make the product. We wanted to focus on marketing and selling the product and doing a bit of product development. So we actually, at the same time as the branding piece, we looked for a contract packer, a co-packer that could co-manufacture the product on our behalf using our recipes and using our packaging. So that was also going on in the background, and we were sending emails and asking people for advice, already in the industry, and looking at directories and things, trying to find a co-packer for the products.
So at that point, you and Laura were both still in full-time employment. I mean, anyone who's, got a full-time job knows that actually there's little enough time for life outside of work. How did you manage to start the business and fit all this in with a 9-to-5 job?
Good question. I mean, it was challenging. This was all pre-COVID as well. So I was in the office 5 days a week. Was not, we were working evenings, weekends, a couple of early morning, admin bits as well. It was challenging. A couple of times, I booked out a meeting room at work and took a non-work related call. That definitely happened. But, we wanted to get the product, we wanted to have a proven market, we wanted to get the product to market, we wanted to have proven product market fit. So we took the product in the June of 2016, we took the product to a consumer exhibition, and we sold the product as it were in its finished packaging at the price we wanted to sell it at. And we ended up selling 3/4 of the stock. So we knew that the product had a demand, it had a consumer that was interested in buying that product. And by that point as well, we had found this co-packer that we were looking for, and we had done a series of recipe development trials to make sure that they could make the product to our specifications. So there was a few things that were sort of coming together here. You know, we had proof of concept, we had a product that was ready to go to market, we had our first customer, a wholesale customer in the sense of Harrods, and we were ready to go. You know, we really, I think we had the confidence at that point to say, you know what, this is going to be our full-time gig. You know, let's go for it.
So what were the main challenges in that early part of business before you'd given up your full-time jobs?
Yeah, obviously finding the time to put into the business. I think the hardest part for me was, I mean, we spent a long time on product development. In hindsight, I think we probably shouldn't have spent that amount of time. We should have got some outside help. We actually did end up getting a food technician involved to help us get some of the flavorings right. And then also, when you start working with a co-packer, of course, the co-packer brings their own expertise because they're making popcorn already and they know things that we didn't know. So I think one of the challenges, I think, initially was perhaps being too focused on product. Ironically, even though I'm so proud of our products, I think you don't know what you don't know. And I think, that one of the challenges was spending an inordinate amount of time on product when you start working with a co-packer, things have to be tweaked anyway, because you have to fit in with their production equipment and their processes anyway. So that was a challenge. And then financing was a challenge. You know, in any product-based business, you have, even if you're not manufacturing as we were, you still have significant outlays in terms of stock and in terms of, you've got to build a website, you've got to get the product out there, market the products. So that was a significant challenge because you have to buy your initial contingency of stock without really having any customers. So that's a big financial risk as well.
So was that self-funded or did you bring outside funding in?
We were self-funded for the first 18 months or so. We then raised a little bit of family money, but not much, just a little rounds of sort of friends and family. And then about a year later, we took on a startup loan, a government startup loan. So that's how we did it. In terms of raising investment from formal investors, we've never done that. We've never done a crowdfund. We've started small, but we realized it was quite a capital intensive business and we needed some money to get us going and to get the business moving. So that was a challenge. Also, the funny thing with packaged goods is that when you go and speak to a packaging company, they want massive minimums generally on their print runs.
Yes.
Otherwise, you end up paying way too much for a single unit. So that was another challenge in terms of how much stock do you buy and how much risk are you willing to take. And when it's your money, you've got skin in the game. So you are really thinking about every penny that you spend. Is this money being spent well? Is this money going to be put to good use? Are we going to sell through the stock? And there's definitely a period of anxiety that I had around that at the beginning, at the early stages.
So you've already mentioned that you finally sort of formally launched at the food fair in the September of 2016. To get Harrods on board at that point must have been incredible. How did that feel after 18 months of kind of hard work behind the scenes to reach that point?
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Harrods, one of internationally recognised brand, one of the premium, if not the premium department store in the UK. To back your idea and your products, it was great. But on the flip side, we knew it was just the start. We knew that we couldn't survive on just a single Harrods store listing. You need volume in our category to really make the business work. So we needed to then come up with a sales and marketing process around selling packaged goods that we could then go and scale and get into other places. So but I think initially, coming from a place of working full time and doing this as a side hustle to get that Harrods seal of approval was just a huge confidence booster. And in terms of our direction as a business, we always Laura and I have always been aligned in terms of having the end goal in mind always, because it's a long process, particularly when you're doing it part-time and then you move to full-time. It's a long process to actually get the product to market and get the business moving. And I think, getting that first purchase order from Harrods, it just makes you even more committed to that end goal, and just gives you, as I say, that confidence to just carry on going in that direction, and knowing that it was the right path for us.
And presumably it's easier to kind of grow your business once you've given up your full-time jobs, and you know that that's what you're focusing on, and you've got, like you say, the confidence from such a high profile, customer.
Yeah, it was, definitely.
So bringing the story up to date, how much popcorn are you selling now? Are you just selling through your website and through Harrods? Do you have other stockists?
Yeah, we have hundreds of stockists now. We are selling to not just Harrods, but we sell into other department stores. So we have listings with Selfridges. We have a national listing with John Lewis in the UK. We sell also into about 15 different sales channels. So department store is one sales channel, but we sell into hampers and gift boxes, we sell into airlines, we sell into specialty retail, so that's the sort of garden centres, delicatessens, farm shops, gift shops and so on. We have a sizable e-commerce business on our website and through Amazon and through other Q-commerce sites, and we also do a fair amount of export as well. And actually we sell popcorn back to the US, so where that nice story came from, our idea for the business in the first place came from the US. It's a little bit like selling coals to Newcastle, as the saying goes.
Yep.
It's nice that we're now actually got a couple of distributors in the US, and we're actually selling our product that's made in the UK back to its domestic home. So yeah, we're proud about that one as well.
How did you bring your other kind of retail customers on side? We've talked to a few sort of small businesses that are now selling through retailers online, and it always seems to me a kind of interesting thing to explore, because for any small business it's the dream to be stocked in a high street store, but it's not always easy. How did you go about bringing, you said that Harrods came to you first, but how about the other people that you're working with? How did you go about bringing them on board?
So at the beginning, we did trade shows. So I mentioned we did the Specialty and Fine Food Fair in 2016, where we registered interest from lots of different retailers at that show, and we did end up selling to some of those retailers. I think in the first 2 or 3 years, we did do quite a few trade shows, particularly in fine food, specialty foods, some more catering towards the gift sector, because a lot of our products are quite focused on gifting. So we built up quite a few of our customers initially through trade shows. And then after that, we have a way of, generating wholesale buyer leads within the business, and then, showing them our marketing materials and, getting interest through them that way. Mostly in consumer packaged goods. If you're not doing trade shows, you're doing cold outbound, because parts of buyers' jobs, obviously it's to negotiate with suppliers. Obviously it's to improve the sell-through of the products they've got and maximize the revenue of their categories. But part of their job is also product sourcing. And actually, as a brand, if you're going to buyers and you're doing a successful cold outreach campaign, you're presenting your products to buyers, you're doing half of their job, kind of making half of their job easy for them, because part of their job is sourcing. And if they're looking for popcorn or they're looking for a gift product, and you're there and you've presented, buyers are receptive to that. Not all, obviously we get a lot of no's, but it's having an effective cold outbound campaign, presenting our products in the right way to buyers has been a core part of our success for sure.
So you've mentioned earlier that you started with 3 flavours, and I can see from the video behind for people who are watching, an array of coloured boxes and packages. How many different flavours and products have you got these days?
We now have over 100 different products. On the flavour side, we have about 30 different flavours, some of which are seasonal. We bring them in and out at different times of the year, depending on the season. And we also do some popcorn related products. So we started with ready to eat flavored popcorn. We very much focus on that. That's still our core offering. We offer that in grab and go packs. We offer that in gift packs and bulk bags. And now we also do make at home popcorn kits. We do our chocolate popcorn nuggets, which is a confectionery product. We do popcorn seasonings, so people who want to make their own popcorn and flavor it at home. We do a seasoning range where people can sprinkle some of our seasonings on top of their hot, freshly popped popcorn at home, and get the comfort and delight of cinema style popcorn from the comfort of their own home. So
mouth's watering.
we do a huge array now of popcorn related products, not just the sort of ready to eat flavored popcorns that we started with.
Yeah, and talking of your packaging, I mean, I can see them here. They're really eye-catching, really standout colours. How do you come up with the new designs for that? Are you still working with an agency for that?
We stopped working with an agency fairly early on when we hired a graphic designer. So
right.
We have a graphic designer in-house that is fantastic, really talented, and actually hand illustrates a lot of our packaging in terms of what's on the back of pack. And he's super talented. The copy comes from Laura, so the actual text on the pack, she's really creative with words. She's a far better copywriter than me. I'll take no credit for that. But the design work itself, and then some of the colors and things, that's coming from both the design brief and the creative talent of the graphic designer that we have in-house.
Yeah, no, they look great.
Thank you.
So to start rounding up, what 3 key pieces of advice would you give to anyone who's listening or watching on how to go about starting and running and even growing a side hustle?
Yeah, I think that sense of having that North Star that's really guiding you, that you just keeps you focused. I think in life, in business, when you're, if you're an employee, and your life changes also during over a period of time, it's really important to keep that North Star and know what your direction is, because it's so easy to get distracted and things change, and people go through huge stresses and changes in their lives. But actually keeping that business idea that they've got in mind and knowing the direction that they're headed, and that being a constant, that consistency is really, really key, because it's so easy just for someone to get really obsessed with something for 6 months, 12 months, and then really work out what's going to be involved in that business, work out actually it's really going to be quite a lot of work, and kind of get distracted and move on to the next idea. No. If you're going to go for something, you've got to commit to it, and you're going to commit to it until you go full time. And when you're full time, you're going to be in that minimum 7 years if you really want to build it. That's my timeline on things. Some people achieve success sooner than 7 years, but for me, it's it's a 7-year journey once you go full time to get it to scale. So that's the first piece of advice. Second piece of advice would be, don't leave your job until if you're doing a product-based business or even a service-based business, don't leave the job until you've actually got the product to market, or you've finalized your service offering and maybe you've got your first 1 or 2 clients. From a financial perspective, I started the business when I was a little bit younger than I am now. Maybe I had less financial commitments, but I still had a mortgage to pay. I still had to have a level of income coming through, because I couldn't afford to quit my job and see how it goes for a year. Like, we just weren't in that financial position. So I think having proven income coming out of the business and a product market, so proven product market fit is really key as well. You don't want to just leave something and not having tested the idea or the service that you're offering. And then the third piece of advice is about teamwork and collaboration. So for me, working with my cousin, we've always been very close from my young age. We kind of grew up together. So I love working with her in the first couple of years. We very much had a balanced skill set. We worked out quite quickly what we were each individually good at, what our strengths were, what our weaknesses were, and we very much focused those the areas of the business in line with what our strengths were. So building a formidable team around us and working with someone. If yes, there are solopreneurs. I personally have never done the solopreneur journey, not yet at least, but working with someone that you can share your anxieties with, and if there are problems, you can kind of troubleshoot that together and work through them. That's, I think, really key, certainly in the early stages.
It's great advice there, thank you. Before I let you go, can you tell listeners where they can connect with you online and where they can find Popcorn Shed, and even better, get their hands on the product, because I'm sure now we're all desperate for some?
Absolutely. So I'm most active, I would say, on LinkedIn. So my handle is @SamFella. So I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram as well. My handle is the same across all platforms. @SamFella. Fella spelled ER at the end. And if you want to get hold of some popcorn, then John Lewis, if your local John Lewis, is going to be your go-to. That's nationally available. If not, you can buy us online, popcornshed.com, or on Amazon. And that's probably the best place to find us, I'd say.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today. Really interesting story. And I'm sure there's loads and loads of takeaways there for anybody who's even considering starting their own side hustle. So thanks for spending your time to talk to us today. It's much appreciated.
Pleasure. Lovely to meet you as well.
What a great story. I love how Sam and Laura were able to start and grow Popcorn Shed while they were still working full time. They'd spotted a gap in the market, developed the product, and the rest, as they say, is history. And by taking their time and focusing on product development and keeping their cost to a minimum by working with the companies that could handle the production and the packaging for them, they were able to minimise the risk and take the business full time when they knew the business was in a position to give them a living, and not before. They started small, literally as a kitchen table business, built themselves a viable product, and then went looking for customers. And look where they are now. It's a real inspiration. We'll share links to Sam and the Popcorn Shed, as well as links to handy resources from across the Donut sites in the summary notes that will accompany this episode. You can find the summary notes at www.startyourownbusinesspodcast.co.uk. If you've enjoyed the show, please hit follow. It makes sure that you're notified about new episodes as soon as they drop. All that remains is for me to thank Sam once again for taking the time to talk to us and to share his brilliant story. Until next time, all the best.